got 5 minutes.
To the 5-minute waiting period.
Welcome to the 5-minute waiting period.
According to that watch, it says 7:30.
So everyone knows we're going to be just doing kind of a high-level overview. We'll be hitting the 4 main franchises. Who here has seen Godzilla?
I saw Final Wars.
Yes. How about Ultraman?
Awesome.
Yes.
There's going to be an Ultraman panel tomorrow at 5 o'clock.
If anyone is still here,
Please
talk
come.
to us about Ultraman.
You should try and get it scheduled for 7 o'clock so you can make Ultra 7 jokes.
Yeah, except that's after the convention.
Yeah, but
No, I mean like for next year.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Kamen Rider.
I'm assuming, yeah. Never, you don't watch Drive with us every week? And you've never seen a Super Sentai, that's why you're wearing a costume.
No, never. Yeah, that's me.
Yes, that is
Does anyone have favorite movies for Zilla or series for the other 3 franchises that they'd like us to touch on a little bit? Just throw out names.
There's too many.
Too many. Everything?
Not everything. There are some glaring flaws in each series.
Oh,
but
yeah.
there are just as many good ones.
Yeah.
And for Double, I believe we do mention it a little bit.
Yes.
We also have a Heisei Kamen Rider panel.
Yes.
That's why I'm feeling.
Yeah, just so you guys know, this is the start of a 3-hour panel marathon for us. All Toku panels.
Buckle in, Chuckles.
So the next one is going to be in here at for Garo.
Garo fans?
immediately
I watched one episode and wasn't turned off.
episode 7.
And
I like how
then
Saga's in the movie.
at the other end of the convention center.
Because that makes sense.
Once we're done with the Garo panel, we'll have our Heisei Rider panel.
So we're gonna have to
Wait,
hustle.
so you're saying that we have to change lanes?
Yes.
Lines.
And maybe have to do a nice drive.
And then when we're done, we can all go, let's got it.
But first, I think we should all start our intros.
More puns.
I'm red.
What are we at?
We are at 10 now. So
All right, let's do it. Let's do it.
It's okay.
Nice to get this thing started.
Alright, so what is Tokusatsu anyway?
Just out of curiosity, is there anybody in here who doesn't know Tokusatsu at all? Just at all.
Okay, nice.
We will try to make it sensible.
So Tokusatsu is actually the Japanese word for special effects. And in general, it is a pretty wide genre in Japan. Along with the titles you've already heard us mention, it basically applies to any sci-fi shows, some fantasy, but I think probably more on the sci-fi end that have a heavy focus on their special effects, particularly practical special effects, but
that line's getting a little blurry as CGI
more CGI is coming in, and it's
cheaper.
usually pretty horrible CGI. So you have such things as Super Sentai as a big staple. Over here, obviously, we know it as Power Rangers. But you also have things like Doctor Who, that when they're brought over into Japan, get lumped into the Tokusatsu genre.
Star Trek.
So, Tokusatsu really has 4 main franchises. It has a lot more outside of that, lots of little things here and there, and
We'll
some
talk about
other
a couple of the
franchises that have become, that maybe were more mainstream at one point, but have kind of faded out, like Metal Hero.
Yeah, popularity
Although
changes with time.
the recent Gavan trilogy of movies was pretty good.
Exactly.
So we're going to cover sort of 4 main staples, starting with Godzilla,
grandfather of them all.
moving into Ultraman, Kamen Rider, and then Super Sentai. I'm sure no one here is surprised given that that's what we called out. So I will turn this over to our resident Godzilla.
Side note, we'll be throwing out names of studios like Toei is the big studio that does Kamen Rider and Super Sentai. They're also well known for things like Dragon Ball Z or Dragon Ball franchise.
And One Piece.
And One Piece. And
Digimon.
Sailor Moon and Digimon.
Anything they can get a lot of money for a little investment.
For a little investment and almost no work.
Yeah. Yeah. But anyway, so starting off with Godzilla, essentially Toho had an extra budget because they had a film greenlighted that fell through. So they're like, well, we've got a budget and we've got this time period. What do you guys want to do? And so we had a major special effects guru, Ishiro Honda and Tomoyuki Tanaka as the producer, got together and said, okay, let's do something completely different from what we've ever done before. Like Tsuburaya had been pulled in a lot to do special effects for propaganda films, and it's really nifty. Some of the special effects are actually used in American newsreels. They were so good that some people thought they were actual video of planes in World War II. But they wanted to do something very anti-war, much more of the civilians' feelings on the hell of war. Especially after an incident called revolving around a fishing vessel called the Lucky Dragon 5, where it was accidentally irradiated during nuclear testing. That was the big inspiration for having a monster irradiated by nuclear testing and awoken. So yeah, again, we're going to be throwing around the terms Showa and Heisei quite often. Showa period Showa and Heisei are terms for periods corresponding to the emperor at the time. And so these periods kind of line up with major tone and feel changes in a number of different franchises. So for the Godzilla franchise, Showa runs mainline from 1954 up until 1975, although there are a few other films that do come after that. And then Heisei is modern age from 1984 on. And then we get another split where there was a brief period of time where Godzilla kind of fell out of popularity. Then the American Godzilla film was made, and Toho
The first one, not the good one.
Yeah, the first one, where Toho immediately said, that took the god out of Godzilla. Let's reboot.
Here's a question. Do you think that since we've had another decade since Final Wars, and I mean, if you count Hollywood Godzilla, then Legendary Godzilla, otherwise we've got the new film coming out from Toho, do you think that this is going to be like considered another big generational split or not? And I suppose we won't know until the next movie comes out. So.
Yeah, and see if it has a series.
Yeah, if they continue making movies, which I guess it'll depend on how
things
their next Godzilla movie goes. And possibly if they decide to do CGI or practical effects.
Don't do CGI. We've already got a Godzilla that's CGI. You don't need to do it.
I believe they're going to go for CGI. So they already had a single completely CGI Godzilla, but it was a cameo in another romantic comedy film that Toho did. So that little side thing. But yes, common tropes. We have the Daikaiju battle, the big draw for many of the giant monster genre, and just Toku in the whole, having awesome cinematic fights.
Having things explode.
Making
That's what
lots
we're
of
here
detailed
for.
models and then tearing them to pieces.
That's what. Yeah.
That's what Tsuburaya did.
That's what Tsuburaya really likes to do, is make pretty things and then destroy them.
Yeah, and so the Godzilla franchise is really loose as far as continuity goes. Kind of the Showa era sometimes is kind of has a continuity, kind of doesn't. Sometimes they'll pick and choose. Oh, I kind of like this movie in the continuity, and then. But the franchise is also extremely variable, depending on what the directors and creators felt like telling at the time. Essentially, the trio started with the first Godzilla movie, which was very much war is terror, and this unstoppable monster is the embodiment of the World War II disaster from just the general public's point of view. And then later on, you get Godzilla presented as an anti-hero. The first movie with King Ghidorah had Mothra's little fairies translating what Godzilla was saying at one point, and apparently he was swearing like a sailor. And then later on, you have Godzilla as a hero and champion of the people, and even a father. He's a slightly abusive father, but...
And then even later on,
when you have Miura.
The Tokusatsu shop.
Yes.
Good parenting.
And then there's
exactly.
Heisei Godzilla, which is my favorite Godzilla, because he's just a dick.
He's kind of this force of nature, kind of butthole god. A god who's an asshole. I would say that right. Anyway. So, yep, so you often have this triad of human technology versus earthly monsters, ancient deities, and alien threats. So very much you have Mothra, who is essentially an earthbound god, a goddess. You have much more normal natural animals like Titanosaurus over there was supposed to be a normal dinosaur controlled with radio waves. And
Yes, that's how dinosaurs work.
yep, Ankylosaurus, and you have a bunch of giant prehistoric things. Then you have Godzilla, who's kind of become a god in his own right. And then alien threats like the original Mechagodzilla there in the middle. Oh man, that was
That was
film.
a trip.
Godzilla has God in its name, though.
Yeah, that's a big theme that crops up. He's kind of a kami, an embodiment of natural disaster later on, but also of human-made disaster.
And depending on which movie you're watching, they bring out that god element to a greater or a lesser degree.
Yeah.
Because in some it's a bit more in the subtext, and then in others it's very much he's
Straight up.
like this horrifying god of, you know, or the embodiment of all the souls
Yeah.
that people kill with their
Got the GMK, in which it got to the Mothra, King Ghidorah, giant monsters all out attack, which was one of the ones from the Millennium series, had the most terrifying concept behind Godzilla as the embodiment of all the Pacific War dead from World War II, and his eyes were just white.
They were really creative.
You've got
What do you guys? What can you tell us about the fact that the name in Japanese is actually Gojira as opposed to the name we know him as Godzilla?
There are a bunch of different theories and stories. Nobody actually knows for certain where the name came from. But the name was something they came up with before Godzilla was even designed. Like a lot of its initial designs were this thing with a mushroom cloud head. It wasn't even a dinosaur at that point. But yeah, like, we don't know exactly, but there is supposed to be that god element. That's why you have it romanized in a lot of Japanese merchandise as well as Godzilla. Also, Tsuburaya was really influenced by King Kong, and one of the other pushes for this movie was they wanted to do something like King Kong, that giant spectacle, especially having a giant monster, but they couldn't afford to do it stop motion. So they developed their own suitimation. And the really interesting thing was, nobody had done any sort of, guy in a rubber suit type thing in Japan at the time. So it was a major learning process where the first two Godzilla suits, the first one was completely rigid by accident because they used the wrong type of latex. And the second one, you can only act in it for about 5 minutes at a time because it was so heavy and so not ventilated that the actor inside ended up getting heat stroke. But yeah. Anyway, some of the iconic titles, obviously the original Godzilla. I really prefer and suggest seeing Gojira, the original Japanese version, first. It is a very serious film, very much sort of a visceral, conceptual horror film. Then they have the American Godzilla, which was actually a bit of propaganda in its own right, trying to show the American populace that Japan as this kind of quaint backwater country. So you have most of the Japanese characters presented as
We've been telling you these people are monsters for the last 5 years. Let's try to backtrack on that a little, if we can.
Yep. From the Showa era, Mothra vs. Godzilla is generally one of the best remembered and most fondly loved films in Japan. I find it kind of hilarious at times, unfortunately, because Godzilla trips really often.
Yeah, he
A
falls
lot
over.
of the Showa era movies are really good fun if you like old cheesy
That's another
sci-fi.
really campy.
Old cheesy sci-fi.
Yep. And Toho also made a number of other giant monster films at the time, and then brought those monsters into the Godzilla franchise. Mothra had her own film prior to showing up in Godzilla. Rodan had his own film. Actually, they were repairing that film prior to joining Godzilla. That's nifty. And Ghidorah is one of the most iconic monsters. He's another cosmic alien monster. He's kind of nifty because sometimes he's a god, sometimes he's an alien god. Yeah, Destroy All Monsters was the Eiji Tsuburai's big send-off. It was the last movie that he was able to do the costume and suit direction for. There were a few movies that came after that I'm rather fond of. After that came Godzilla versus the Swamp Monster versus Heimura, which is a really contested film as to, some people say it's the worst ever, and others are just like, it's really artsy, it's cool.
I like it.
There was also a few awkward films like Godzilla vs. Mogura, and awesome ones like Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. But yeah, next up, Godzilla vs. Biollante established the Heisei era Godzilla. There is another one that came out in 1984, but that one had a kind of growing pains. It was really a bridge between the two, and it's Godzilla vs. Biollante that sort of solidified the image of the Heisei Godzilla.
It's got the most
When
amazing
did the
scenes with
Heisei
the children, right?
Yes, that's the one with the psychic children who are like all drawing the same thing.
Well, the psychic children are all upset, so they're like, please draw what's bothering you.
Yeah, what
and
you've
then
been
they all
dreaming.
hold up children's drawings of Godzilla bursting out of a volcano. It's the most amazing 10
Yeah.
seconds of television.
Isn't the
Press-
1984 Godzilla movie the only Godzilla movie that has been released over here on DVD?
Yes, that's
That
correct.
is absolutely correct, and it is unfortunate.
And the legal bindings behind that have been, are still currently contested as far as who gets distributed in states. The Godzilla 2000 is the mighty comeback. I love a lot of the Heisei era movies. It's so hard to pick iconic titles. Arg.
Godzilla is fun.
Yep. And GMK I mentioned earlier, which was the thing with the Millennium series is there's really no continuity except for saying that the original first movie happened. But they're very distinct, while the Heisei era has a lot more continuity.
That's a pretty strict continuity.
Yeah.
That's
Sometimes it
recurring
gets
characters.
it's wibbly wobbly, especially
mentions previous films.
Yes.
Stuff like
time travel. Don't even think about
that.
that.
Yeah, well, that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
No one does time travel well.
And Godzilla Final Wars was the complement to Destroy All Monsters with the Big Bang showing off all of the creatures, and it's very much a mix of tones and styles, trying to capture Godzilla at every age, every point of the franchise.
Do you guys have favorites that you want to throw out there? For
Final Wars is the only one I've seen.
Yeah.
It would have to be a Godzilla versus Megalon because of Jet Jaguar.
Yeah, well, Jet Jaguar, Godzilla vs. Megalon was originally a Toho production not with Godzilla, and they took children's designs in a contest and picked one of those designs to be a new hero, and that hero was Jet Jaguar, who later on inspired the Jet Alone from Evangelion, but that's way aside. But they didn't think the movie could stand on its own with just Jet Jaguar, so they built a Godzilla costume in 1 week, and that was the Godzilla that appeared with Jet Jaguar versus Megalon.
It's gloriously bad.
Oh my goodness.
Watch the Misty version of that.
The MST
Want the
3K
best
version
version.
is
Want the best version.
fantastic if you can find it. Yep, so where's Godzilla now? He's here! I really enjoyed the latest American Godzilla. I know that there have been plenty who do not at all, but it manages to have him be a hero without making him really childish. I don't know.
it does well at making him a hero while still making him feel like something
He's still
far
got the
beyond
scale.
us.
Yeah.
And
I
some-
thought the plot of the movie was that it was the predator and the other creatures were its prey.
Yeah, but they also
That's
have at
why
the
they
end of the
let them
series,
fight.
or at the end of the movie, they have that scene of him sort of acknowledging humanity and just sort of leaving us to our own devices. He's not really interested in us at all.
This Man of Steel done right.
Yeah. Plus, like,
Let people die.
they had the implication of humanity was trying to have reason and science for him, but then at the end he didn't even try to eat the other monsters, the Muto. He seemed to be just an independent force.
And he got a mild subtextual romance scene with the main character.
Yes,
Yep.
which was awesome.
Yep.
So,
And obviously that made all the money, so a sequel is coming with
We
like actual
have
monsters from the
Mothra
franchise.
and King Ghidorah and Lee Rodan
Confirmed,
confirmed
yeah.
confirmed for the new American
Yeah.
movie, and then Toho's like, oh man, this was amazing. This did amazing in
getting
Japan. Let's make another.
So Toho is working on their own new legit Godzilla film. Anybody here familiar with Evangelion? The guy who directed Evangelion is writing this new film.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh
I
wow.
swear to God, if we get the Christian imagery.
Well, let's hope he stays on his medication.
He's pretty sane lately.
So long as Anno's there, I figure it'll be a suit though, because Anno is in love with Toki.
Oh yeah, no,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
that's what gives me some hope is that Anno is a big Toku fan.
Yeah. And I mean, they've been doing a mix of CGI since the midway through the Heisei era, when they paved over the original pool that they had for all the walking on the ocean scenes. But yeah, Godzilla is now a household name throughout the world. Even has his own star in the Hollywood Walk of Fame. He has appeared as, not necessarily licensed reference characters, although we've had some problems more recently having Godzilla-ish characters in things like cartoons or in advertisements. Toho actually sent a cease and desist order to Subway for having a Godzilla-ish monster advertising their $5 footlongs. Because this is actually a very iconic move for Godzilla in suit, but... yeah. And there's also literally a Godzillasaurus now.
Also Reptar.
Alright, I'll take Ultraman, I'll kinda go through this quick.
No, you can't.
Sorry, I talked way too long.
It's okay. So history of Ultraman. The Ultra franchise began with a show called Ultra Q by Eiji Tsuburaya, who was one of the men responsible for Godzilla. He started the show in 1966. It's kind of sort of a Twilight Zone-y, Outer Limits-y sci-fi show with different monsters of the week and a team of people working to combat the monsters and save Tokyo. And it did pretty well, but Tsuburaya felt that the franchise would do better with a hero at the scale of the monsters that the kids could root for. So he created Ultraman, who was this giant silver alien that would fight giant monsters every week. That aired later the same year, and needless to say, it exploded and became one of the most popular things in Japanese history. It went on and off, but pretty continuously throughout the 70s and up until 1980, and then took a 15-year break in Japan. There were a couple of Western series, we'll talk about them in a minute. And then it came back with Ultraman Tiga, and it's been kind of on and off ever since.
It's that good right now. Yay!
So some common tropes about Ultraman is obviously Ultraman himself, the giant silver alien that's going to fight off the monsters that are attacking humanity.
High star you.
He's a, generally a alien being of light from a far-off nebula, although not always. Generally, there's some kind of science team or exploration team or military team who are either finding and discovering these monsters or set up to fight monsters or alien menaces or things like that. Obviously, there's always a monster every week, a original monster that for Ultraman to fight. Otherwise, it would get pretty boring pretty fast. The monsters are sometimes aliens, or sometimes they're monsters native to Earth or gods or things like that.
Or your
The
Godzilla
second
repainted.
most dangerous
Yes.
profession in Tokusatsu is mining. The first most dangerous profession is fishing.
Yes.
Don't enjoy nature, just don't. You'll get eaten.
No, the first
So-
most dangerous thing in Tokusatsu is being plastic furniture,
Yes.
especially recently.
Yes. So the Ultraman generally has some kind of secret identity, a civilian form. It's either a case of a symbiotic relationship between the alien and a human, or the alien takes a human form. But either way, they have some kind of human form. They generally fight alongside the science team or the military team, and they're usually pretty fastidious about keeping their identity a secret, about making sure that the other people on their team and in their lives don't know that they're Ultraman.
Sometimes they have layers of secret identities. Hi, Ultraman 80.
Yeah.
Yep. And
lose the
it's
protection.
interesting. It's a mix of not wanting humanity to rely on the Ultraman, trying to keep that a secret. Other times it's the, well, they don't trust aliens, and what will they do?
So some iconic titles in the franchise. Obviously, the original Ultraman is the show that really sort of solidified the franchise in Japanese consciousness.
And here too.
Ultra 7 was the sequel series, and it's one of the most popular to this day in the
Good
franchise.
reason.
It's had a lot of spin-offs. It had a series of straight-to-video stuff in the 90s. It had a weird quasi-sequel series in 2008. It's pretty much one of the number one ones in Japan. to
And we
this
got
day.
Okusenman.
Tiga is the first Heisei Ultraman show. It was really the return of the franchise to television, to public consciousness.
It's also a completely alternate universe.
Yes.
He pulled the
Isn't
Kuga before
it
Kuga.
also
Yes.
the first show to have alternating forms for the main?
I believe so, yes.
Yep, it was
Um,
the first.
He is Kuga.
Yeah.
And Menace was a big anniversary show that kind of pulls all the
It was
continuity
decades
back.
before decades.
back into the franchise, and was really just a big celebration of everything that makes Ultraman Ultraman.
It did it really well.
It did
It
it
did
really
really well.
well. Like, if Toei
Um,
had paid attention, it would have been.
So Ultraman Ginga S was the most recent series to air in Japan. It recently finished, and actually this is a little outdated because there is a new show that is starting in about 2 months
Yeah.
called Ultraman X. We don't know much more
That's
about it other
exciting.
than that, but it sounds good. The staff on it sounds like some talented people working
They
on
also
it.
currently have a miniseries.
Yeah,
Zero Flight Victory.
yes, Zero Fight Victory. Well, that's something that kind of goes on and off
Yeah.
all the time. There's always
Yeah.
some kind of like short miniseries and short
Something.
Or
episodes
movie or
with just like brief fights and stuff like that. But like a full-on series, the next one is Ultraman X.
And it's so exciting to have Ultraman back again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Gone
So-
for a while.
Western influence for Ultraman. The original Ultraman was dubbed by the Speed Racer cast actually, and released
Okay.
in North America on television. That release has gotten a DVD release recently. You can get it really cheap. You can get it $5-10 for the whole series.
and it does have it subtitled too.
Yeah, and it's subbed and dubbed, so it's a good deal.
Or you can get it on Blu-ray next year.
Oh yeah, that's right, because they've got Chayo for all everything you can say about them are doing a big push for Ultraman Blu-rays and stuff next year.
Yeah, Chayo is.
I don't have time to get into
Yeah.
them, but we'll get into them in the Ultraman panel if you go there. Ultraman Tiga got a dub by 4Kids. It was pretty bad,
It was run on Fox.
It had a kickin' theme song though.
Worst
Yes.
numbers ever.
but it did have
had One
a
Piece syndrome.
subtitled DVD release by Funimation, and that was very good. Unfortunately, it's pretty out of print now, so you'll sometimes be able to find a few volumes, like the first and fourth volumes generally aren't hard to find. I've noticed the second one being a bit easier to find nowadays. Third volume, good luck getting that in for double digits.
Randomly, things will just pop up on Amazon for cheap. It seems like people just find old boxes with
Right.
them in it. So.
But that's about all you can hope for with Tiga. 7 got a U.S. release or a Western release recently with English subs by
Why
Shop
does
Factory.
Ultraman have the dragon shield?
And
he had
it's
it before it was cool.
it's a very good release. It's not as cheap as Ultraman, but it's still only like $40. So
It's
I would
missing an
definitely-
episode.
I would definitely say, well, it's missing an episode, but that episode you can't like even in Japan, it's never been seen since its first airing because it was about radiation poisoning and sickness, and very much a parallel for World War II. and
Oh,
it was considered
good.
rather
Yeah, that's a
insensitive.
little.
And they
And
pretty
look
much
like toilet
tried to
monsters.
erase it.
Yeah.
They thought they had succeeded, but
Someone is actually like
gone.
someone has actually pulled together like as much of the like various versions of the episode, like stitched them all together with subs, and it's out there on the internet. So if you want to watch episode 12, it's out there.
But yeah, it's not a bad episode so far as the
It's the
people in
boring
charge of the
episode.
franchise. It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It's not included in their episode numbers. It's just gone.
Ultra Q got a Western DVD release, Ultra Shock Factory.
Big Mom.
Adorable.
That one,
What
it's
is
in its
that?
original black and
It's
white,
big.
because I know there have been colorized releases of Ultra Q, but the North American version is in black and white.
said
But
big.
that's also about $35 for the whole series, not a bad deal.
It's got the best tagline ever. For the next 30 minutes,
Your eyes will leave your body and
Experience this strange
this-
moment in time.
Yeah.
So it was actually trying to be Twilight Zone.
Yes,
Oh,
very
yes.
much so.
Oh,
It doesn't hide it. It doesn't hide it at all.
And it's interesting because my impression from the Ultraman series I've seen is they've actually struck me tone-wise as a little bit more Star Trek-ish.
Yeah.
Where you have this human team and they're encountering whatever strange thing they're encountering that week.
It's a cave inside a cave. What are you talking
Yeah.
about?
But like we have the set team, but you have lots of different writers from across lots of different writers. So occasionally you'll get episodes of varying quality.
Also, recently, Ultraman Max, Ultraman Mebius, Ultraman Leo, and Ultraman 80 have been made available on Crunchyroll. So if you don't like spending money at all, you can watch some legal Ultraman for free, or if you've got a paid account there, you can watch them without commercials. It's a real good deal. If you're a Crunchyroll member especially, just watch some Ultraman.
Definitely watch Mebius.
Mebius is amazing.
Mebius is a great jumping
And Max
off
Max
is so much fun and has some really fascinating episodes. Like, it's got
It's
some
definitely got
bad
some
episodes
bad
too.
episodes.
But the good
What show
episodes, the good episodes in Max are some of the best in the franchise. Stunning stuff.
Also
Follow
had a number of
Nick.
episodes done by Takeshi Nikkei, who you might know. He was really quirky when he was doing this.
Is there a solid
Barnaby
chronological
Brooks
list
Jr.?
of all Ultraman series?
I mean, if you look on Wikipedia, you can definitely find a list of
Wikipedia
every
does have
Ultraman
those.
series in the chronological order. Again, they don't all have a continuity together, so you don't have to watch them in any
Until
order.
Mebius, which
Until
kind
Mebius.
of pulls them all into
Yes.
one big world.
And I mean, in the Showa
Fantastic
era, they
starting
constantly
point,
crossed over,
yeah.
but...
So which one is this, and why does he look like Barnaby Brooks Jr.?
This is
Like
the
Ultron.
recent Ultraman manga that was done by the writer and artist of Line Barrels of Iron. And this has been pretty popular. It's basically a separate continuity again, where no other Ultraman has ever come to Earth, just the original. And
This is his son.
yeah, well, this is the son of the host of the original Ultraman. He retains some of that cosmic power, so he gets a powered suit to fight. This is going to be released by Viz in August, so I've heard a lot of
Yeah,
really
here.
good. Yeah,
It's really good.
It's got some weird partnership with AKB48. I picked up the first volume over there, and there's some
God.
AKB girl on the
they're-
Actually, AKB48 has done some other stuff with Ultraman. They had a group playing a Rebellion Army team in
Ultraman Saga.
Yeah.
Actually,
They were really awesome.
yeah, they
They
did really
actually
well.
did a pretty good job.
Also, there were two Western-developed Ultraman shows, Ultraman Powered and Ranger. These aren't like Power Rangers where they took footage from a Japanese show. This was shows. Powered was American, Toward the Future was Australian, where they got Super Aya to help them, and they got their own special effects and designs and things. Powered never really got a release outside of Japan, ironically, but Toward the Future, it's been on Hulu before. I don't know if it is at the moment, but it's not hard to find.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Toward
Sorry.
the Future is also known as Ultraman Great.
Yes.
Yeah.
You
Um,
can bypass America.
Well, yes.
know.
There are ways.
I won't name
They're
names.
supposed to
Google
talk
is your
about
friend.
not
What?
talk about legal and then
Well, it's not
mention that
illegal
there are
as long as you watch the ads.
Yeah,
Watch the ads.
there was also a Hanna-Barbera co-produced cartoon. It never really got more than a pilot, but it was shockingly good for a Hanna-Barbera produced cartoon in the
What?
80s.
Yeah.
And the Ultramen in it still show up in like stage shows or as background ultras in various movies.
You know,
So
the
Better
big
have a
fight
cameo
scenes
by
in the
Yogi
movies,
Bear.
they'll be in there, including the female Ultraman, which is cool.
That is Scott.
Wait, how can a female be called man?
well, they generally aren't.
Well, just like
Beings of-
not all the Ultras have man in their
The
name.
word man is in woman, it counts.
Ultra 7
Ultraman
doesn't
lady?
have man. Yeah.
That's right, I went there.
Which one do you recommend to start off?
We'll get to that. We'll get to that at the end of the panel. And there was a OVA called The Ultraman that got a dub. There's not much more to say about it other than that.
OVA.
So let's go to.
Wait, I thought you were going to end the clip with Ralph saying, "My sash says Ultraman."
Sorry,
That
not
would be
this
good
time.
to end that sentence.
Just,
So anyway, Kamen Rider, what I'm sure most of you are here for.
I'm gonna go through this quick, because again, we have a Kamen Rider panel in 2 hours, and we have a lot to cover here, so
We've got half an
apologies.
hour left here.
Oh, we're right on the dot then.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, 25 minutes.
So,
For the next
history of
panelist, we
Kamen
will
Rider.
figure some out.
It was created by Ishinomori Shotaro in 1971.
My goodness, was that man prolific?
Yes, he was.
He created all sorts of things that.
We'll get to
Talk
later.
about it at the end.
He was
Yes.
mentored by Tezuka.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Oh,
it
yes,
was,
very much.
it was,
They've got a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
apprentices, yeah.
And it ran somewhat sporadically to the end of the 80s. It took a 10-year break. Pretty much there was no Kamen Rider on TV through the 90s, though there were a set of movies. And then it really had a revival with Kuga in 2000. And since then, it's been running with a new series every single year, very solidly.
Making lots of money.
And again, well, with the modern day, every series is its own independent thing. With the older Showa shows, most of them had continuity between them.
well, the reason shows share universes ever since Decade, especially in the movies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
multiverse.
But that's because we have bridges between parallel universes.
Well, the thing is,
Even in Heisei, like Neo Heisei, it's all been pretty much the same continuity.
I think the
Yeah.
argument is after the Decade movie, all the worlds were united, so that's why the cameos happened without any dimension hopping.
Yeah.
It's a weird
Wait,
name.
wait,
It's
wait.
wibbly wobbly.
That would
At the
also
end
include
of,
the Super Sentai
Wizard.
universe.
Well, they've appeared.
Yeah.
But they definitely started out
I mean, look at the
having
Gaikai
some
specials.
connection between the series, kind of grew away from that, and then pulled it all together in a big multiverse scenario that kind of merged, and the more recent series have all kind of been like, hey, we're in the same
But
world.
it's still
But
very
it's
much
very-
you can start at the
And
first
you can watch any
episode
series.
and you won't know that you.
Yeah.
They're all at
several-
different locations.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're very independent from each other.
So, things you often see. Insects. The original Kamen Rider was a scientist who was captured by an evil organization, turned into a cyborg, and this organization liked to make it cyborgs with particular animal themes, and he just happened to be the grasshopper. Hence, the big bug eyes. And that's been something that has continued on in further series. You either have actually insect-themed riders, or even if they're not insect themes, they tend to have the big bug eyes still. Or the funny jaw.
There's some sort of insect.
Thank God.
stuff
Thank
in.
God for Chaser.
Kibazans.
Well, I mean, he's still got the
They're still composite.
yeah, they've still
Yes.
got the composite eyes. It's just
Even
you know,
though
not
they're
directly bug.
jack-o'-lantern.
Like the only rider who really doesn't have any sort of bug-like things about him at all is
Hibiki.
Hibiki.
And that's because Hibiki was conceived as
Wizard.
a different show. Wizard still has
the shape, the shape.
and he has antennae.
Although
Those are dragon antenna, but yeah.
Now, Kamen Rider just means masked rider. And what did he ride? A motorcycle. The original Kamen Rider was a motocross rider.
Yeah.
And so he did a lot of stunts on his motorcycle. It was a big part of it. How involved the motorcycle is, or if it is one, has kind of changed up throughout the series, but
Sometimes they are his sentient friends.
Yeah.
Sometimes
they're
don't
actually a
exist.
character. Sometimes the rider turns into a motorcycle.
So, yes, sometimes they're the secondary
Autovajin
rider.
is best machine.
Yeah, Autobajin's adorable.
When you really look back on the show of motorcycles, they look really odd.
yes,
Well,
a lot of
actually,
them do.
a lot of the
Amazon
older
had best
motorcycles, they were either trying to really feature a concept vehicle from one of their main sponsors, Honda and Suzuki were big sponsors at the time.
Well, Honda didn't come until Agito.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, oh yeah, sorry.
Well, it's
Still
been a while
counts.
since Agito now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Belts are another thing you will always see. The original Kamen Rider, his transformation was wind powered. He had to get the turbine in his belt to spin in order to transform.
First time
And-
he transformed, he was thrown off a cliff.
Yeah, the monster's like, I'll throw you off the cliff. And he's like, that's exactly what I needed, thanks. And not always, certainly not as much recently, but certainly like through the Showa into the early Heisei, you often had a spinning motif in the belts as well to go along with that. And then more recently, the belts have become a bit more of the marketing point with a lot of little gadgets and pieces that you can sell to the kids.
And now they talk.
Got the tentacle.
Yeah, and sometimes you have talking ones or singing ones, but
I love
quite a
doubles.
few based off of cards. And then the Neo Heisei, which is the past 5 years or so, have had a lot of collectibles like Doubles Gaia Memories or
And now
O's
it's
and
got
Medals,
cars,
or
the
yeah,
medals,
all the toy cars for
the
Drive.
rings for.
Basically, 2010 to now, it's just been gimmicks.
Yes.
Yep. What toys can we put in Gashapon machines?
It's not necessarily a bad thing. Guy proved that they can make it work and still be a great show.
I'm
Definitely.
very interested in seeing what the gimmick for next year's rider, considering it's rumored to be
Fashion themed? Yeah, I've heard
Yeah.
that.
Did you hear the rumored name?
Oh,
Masked
sorry?
Rider King Fashion.
Oshara, yeah.
Yeah, I just want it for that name.
That's amazing.
I know, right? And they're saying that the forms are going to be called lines, like lines of clothing.
Yeah.
And it just looks like a street clothes
It's
suit.
loose-fitting clothing.
Yeah.
I'm actually excited to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If rumors are true, that would just be pretty cool.
Kamen Riders usually have their distinctive transformation pose that can be very simple or very complicated. The original Kamen Rider at the beginning, he didn't have one. He just needed the turbine to spin.
Usually by driving on a motorcycle.
But when the second rider was introduced, one of the ways they helped distinguish him from the first is have him do a transformation pose. And it's stuck ever since. And the transformation poses are very interesting. They often set a lot of the tone and body language of that particular character, and a lot of time, well, not a lot of, you can also have references in them. Like, I know in Double, there were references pose-wise to older riders. So it's also become a point with a lot of homage to it as well.
Did you guys hear about the secret behind Drive's transformation pose?
No.
If you
It's an
pay
arm.
attention to his
Yeah.
arms, he's
Yeah,
making
it's
the
an
emblem.
arm.
Oh, it's awesome.
I know, right?
Yeah, no, I saw that.
Wavy hand.
I've been practicing it
Unless
ever
you're
since.
Hibiki.
There was a Garo thing like that.
Yes, there was.
Yes, there was.
We can talk about that next panel.
And then, very often you have a secret organization. In the beginning, it was always the evil organization. It started out literally being neo-Nazi, and then you kind of moved into cults and weird mystical things. We've had
Starfish.
mafiosas.
Thank you,
Oh.
archaeologist.
Yeah, lately it's been a lot of like corporate stuff.
Yeah. But you have also occasionally had good secret organizations. In Hibiki, you had Takeshi, which was the organization the heroes belonged to. Sometimes you have both good and bad secret organizations, like in RX.
And then you have the chaotic neutral you get those.
Fogami was so good.
Happy birthday.
He sang happy
Happy
birthday while his men were
birthday!
slaughtered.
Yep. So, secondary rider, definitely in modern day stuff, you could expect a little ways into the series, another rider's going to show up, and he's going to be some kind of counterpoint or foil character for the hero. This really was born out of two things. One was that the lead actor for the original Kamen Rider broke his legs doing stunt work and was out of the series for a while, which is why they brought in a second rider. And the other thing that really spawned the secondary rider trope was in V3, where through most of the series you had V3 as really your focused protagonist, and then towards the end in came Riderman as kind of a foil counterpoint character to him. So those two elements really combined into something that's become a very dependable, reoccurring trope.
Although I have to say, I'm glad we're done with the two riders only formula from the early Neo Heisei.
Yeah.
Ever since
yeah.
Gaim, it's been 3 and up, and I'm so glad.
Hey guys, look, toys, look.
And then starting with RX in the
Yep.
80s or 90s, right?
Yeah, I mean there was a
That-
power up for stronger, but not like a real form change
Yeah.
like we have nowadays.
You started to get the idea of changing forms to meet different obstacles. Kuga really epitomizes this in terms of, you have a form for strength, but that's slow. You have a form for speed, but it's weak. That kind of stuff. And then obviously in the new day and age, the power-ups. Excuse you.
Kids.
What's on?
I
There
guess
we
this
go.
was.
That's very rude. The power-ups and the new forms have really gone into the whole gadgets and sellability, and I have my new forms and my upgrades so that there's more dolls and there's more things to collect.
It still doesn't make any sense how I have a power up. That means that then somehow I'm stronger.
Well,
You're still the same person.
Well, in Kuga, it was a reallocation of stats. He still had the same number of stat points. It's just, okay, let's shuffle these things over here.
And it depends on how
But
the power-ups
that
are
wasn't the
given.
case with
It's-
Rising. With Rising, it
Yeah.
was pretty much a stat boost for all of his forms.
Yeah.
Well, yes, but
Exactly.
also there was an outside force that caused that. That is explicitly stated. why he's
Electricity.
stronger.
Yeah, and I actually really liked the explanation for the
It
upgrades.
was actually one of
Very
the best so far as explaining all the power.
Yeah.
Everything
what they do.
integrated.
It didn't
Exactly.
touch
But
with the original Kuga
the basic
because it didn't
idea
have
is-
electric.
The basic idea behind different forms having different stats is just wearing the belt and having the armor already augments most riders' natural abilities. It's really subtle in the fight scenes because they look like just normal people fighting, but because it's a monster versus a rider, their average goes up, and it's subtle, but if you pay attention to certain scenes, you can see how they're fighting with superhuman abilities, and that's why the different forms augment different parts.
And a lot of it really is all a callback to that idea of the cyborg from the original Kamen Rider. These aren't normal people anymore. They have been physically changed or imbued with something that lets them go beyond those limitations.
And the best part is almost all of the time it's a case of the riders using the technology or the magic of the very things they're fighting.
Yep.
Yes.
And somehow they still
Recently,
don't know how
one of
to
them
defeat
just
him.
got to be God.
And as of this series, we have our very first actual android rider.
Yeah, he's kind of an inverse rider. It's really fascinating.
Although I have a theory about Chase. I'll talk about that on the
Yeah.
Heisei panel.
Okay.
Alright, so some iconic titles. Obviously, Kamen Rider's the place it all starts. So much of what we have today can be traced back to here. And in the 2000s, there was a movie reboot of the Kamen Rider concept. It gave them kind of new, sleeker designs, and it tried for a much darker, edgier tone. I found it to be kind of It had some really strong points. It also had some really weak
The
points.
first tried to be a combination of Kamen Rider plus J-drama,
Oh god, yeah.
and it was told in a non-linear fashion and did not do a good job of telling you who these people were that they were jumping back to, how they were related to the modern plot point, yeah. And then it had a follow-up called The Next, which never got an American release, which was Kamen Rider versus J-Horror, and you had a Sadako. And it didn't do well.
No.
V3D.
V3 is, to this day, I think, one of the most respected rider shows, one of the most beloved in retrospect. It did very well in Japan. It also did well in Hawaii.
Yeah.
And V3, it takes a lot of that original core of Kamen Rider, polishes it up a bit. It still can't be old-fashioned sci-fi, but it packs a powerful punch, and really this is the other half bringing us the real heart of Kamen Rider that got carried
He is
on.
the Ultra 7 of Kamen.
Yeah,
He is the
it
only
really is.
Isn't he also the only rider to fly in base form?
No, that's
No.
Sky
That's
Rider.
Sky Rider.
Oh, right, Skyrider.
You guys should
Kamen
power
Rider
through this.
Black was... It's considered part of the Showa, though Black and its kind of connected sequel, Black RX, kind of bridge the time gap between Showa into the Heisei. One of the things that's very interesting with Black, though, is that it takes a lot of storytelling and thematic elements of old Kamen Rider. It's very Showa, but it tells them in a way that's a bit more modern storytelling and with much better special effects.
Oh my
So
goodness.
It's
Their
kind of
budget
a
was amazing.
blend of the two eras, and I'd say it was also very formative. Kamen Rider taking its next step forward.
This was good.
Yes,
Yep.
Kuga was really their last-ditch, no-holds-barred. We're gonna try this, and if it fails, we're done. We have no budget. You can see the zippers on the suits, but we're gonna put all our heart and soul into it and see if we can revive this franchise. And boy, did it work! It's a lot of original Kamen Rider. It's also a lot of cop drama. So if that's
Better
your
cop
thing,
drama than Drive.
it's very well written.
It was much more written for an older audience. They're trying to get the nostalgia group while still being accessible enough with fantastic toy opportunities for kids.
Toys that you can
Kuga is what brought Kamen Rider back to us, and it is a phenomenal piece. And then Kuga through Decade is considered sort of the original Heisei, the early Heisei, or just plain old Heisei era. And then starting with Double through now is what we call the Neo Heisei. Double really set the new standard and started the era that we're currently in. Brought in a lot more of the gadgety toys, brought in a more colorful atmosphere, brought in some settings that really had a life and a character of their own.
It wasn't
and
just set
really
in Tokyo.
colored the world their own, and it really set the standard for what we see today.
And it was one of the major jumping on points for a lot of the Western fan base. It's really interesting.
So where is it now? It's currently in the middle of Kamen Rider Drive. I don't know what that was.
If one of
So one
it's
of Toei's most
cut off the
successful franchises economically.
Drive, I mean, obviously I can't judge it till it's done, but so far I have really been enjoying it. I
Stay
think
for
it's-
Chase.
It's very solid.
Chase is fantastic.
It's got
Yep.
interesting villains. It's got a fun cast of protagonists.
Amazing.
It's a nice drive so far.
Yeah.
Yes,
It
nice
has been
It's a
a nice
nice
drive
drive
so
so
far.
I like it. It's gotten a lot better recently.
So,
Oh God, no.
for Western influence,
Yeah, the Master
Well,
Rider,
it's
you know, an
saving your
alien prince, and they used footage.
yeah, so Master Rider tried to do the Power Rangers treatment with Kamen Rider.
And literally
with-
debuted in a Power Rangers episode.
It did.
with taking footage of the action shots from the Japanese and then cobbling them together with scenes from human
Western actors.
Western out-of-suit actors. There we go. That's where the human came from. In order to tell a completely different story, it chose some pretty eclectic things to sample from RX and also bits from the movies that happened in the 90s. And
Note that two of the movies that pulled from were only 45 minutes each. That's not the greatest big bad guy for the entire series.
not too much footage to use there.
Yeah.
It was pretty terrible, and it had this.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
There we go. We're running low on
Damn you,
time,
Zaren
so-
Zephyr.
Yeah.
There was also Kamen Rider Dragon Knight.
It was just right up by really passionate.
It's slow to
group.
start, but once the plot
It's
really
so
kicks
much
in,
better
it's way
than
better.
Master Rider.
Way better than Ryuki.
So
Yeah.
this really did the Power Rangers
I
thing
would
again.
debate you on that.
It's
They both have their
At least this has one ending that is good instead of 4 endings that are bad.
from my
I really like one
I
of
guess.
the
Yeah.
From my understanding,
Makes sense,
it's a pretty decent entry. It actually did really well in Japan.
Yeah.
They took it back over to Japan and dubbed it into Japanese.
And got the guy who
And it
voiced
did well.
Knight to voice Len.
It
Yes.
needs a re-release.
That's actually something that's very
Damn,
common
yes, it
with
really
Power,
does.
It
Power
needs,
Rangers
like,
too.
a
That they
digital-
get dubbed into Japanese with the actors who played the original Super Sentai.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome.
As I mentioned, V3 was very popular in Hawaii, and thus there was a DVD release of it that's available.
It's fantastic.
It's very good.
Isn't it like
It's also
$130?
really expensive
Yeah.
because it's a small company and it was actually first released back when $100 was a bargain for an entire series.
Ishinomori, the man himself, made his own manga version of Kamen Rider. It's a trip. The art is very... Okay.
Okay, cool. Sounds
Yeah,
good.
just the-
Yeah. Actually, you just.
Well, I don't know if they want us to do that entire part
Yeah.
of this, but
So we'll get through Kamen Rider, we'll breeze through
So-
Sentai, and then we'll go right into Garo if you're not interested.
We're not even gonna discuss Shin.
Shin was yesterday. Shin was yesterday.
Oh,
Yeah,
damn!
I-
I miss talking about the only film in existence.
I don't
The
think
half
we have
human,
time for
half
Sentai. It
cricket.
has such a long history.
No, Shin's the Tim Burton comic.
I know, but half human, half cricket
Sentai.
baby.
Anyway.
Born of
Sentai's the last of
materialization
the
by
big
then.
franchise.
It was
Gonna go
adorable.
through it fast. Also made by Ishinomori because he made a lot of things. Started in 1976
75.
with Secret Sentai Go Ranger.
After Amazon got taken off the air.
After Amazon had its debacle.
Yeah.
Spider-Man actually did giant robots before Sentai did.
Oh my gosh!
They were part of
It's
it.
amazing. Changing
It also
parts is
inspired
fantastic.
Battle Fever J.
Yeah, it did inspire Battle Fever J because they were like, you know what, giant robots is a good idea. Let's
Also,
do it.
Spider-Man Tokusatsu, surprisingly
Spider-Man
good.
I've seen a bit of
Tokusatsu
it.
is fun.
And now Ken.
Planets.
And also canon.
Yes!
I did see the recent
Spider-Man.
comic with
Makes
Leonardo.
Rider Marvel canon.
And that makes Battle Fever J directly Marvel canon. So.
Yes.
Yep.
Crossover.
They tried to do Captain America. It was kind of racist.
Wait. in what
Battle
aspect?
Kenya and Battle Kosa. Where's
Uh,
Kenya?
And Miss America with a goddamn blonde wig.
Yeah.
And it actually wasn't until 1994 that they decided Go Ranger and Jacker, which came before Battle Fever, would be included in the count of the Super Sentai, even though they didn't have giant robots.
And Ninja Captor isn't.
No, Ninja Captor is not still. Don't know why.
Toei. Toei. Tropes you see in Sentai, you've got an odd-numbered, colorful team. Usually start out with 3 or 5 people. Your red is either the leader of the team, or if they're not the leader of the team, they're still going to be the main character that you
Combat
recall.
leader.
I'm the leader.
You have your giant robot battles, which are fun or terrible depending on how good the special effects team is.
Yep.
You'll usually have a 6th ranger who plays a similar role to the secondary rider. They come in after 10 to 20 episodes and shake up the
things up.
group dynamic.
And are usually the best and most interesting
And
ones.
are usually really fascinating. Usually something a little
Go Guy
more
Christmas!
Oh my god.
My buddy sold the figure of this for yesterday
As
night.
opposed to Rider, which is usually 2-episode arcs, sometimes many episode arcs, or in the case of Fives, just all one story.
And Orgon.
Orgon.
Yeah.
Well, the guy still had like 13 episode arcs for the
Yeah.
most part.
Yeah.
Sentai is aimed at a younger audience, and they usually, you got 24 minutes, you're telling one story. If you get a 2-part episode, it's something really special.
And somehow episode 3 of Tokuger got through. You know what I'm talking
I
about.
don't remember what episode 3.
The Coffin Shadow.
Oh yeah, I love Chain Shadow.
is amazing.
I love Chain Shadow so much.
No, but how they defeated him. You know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah,
The
that.
train battle?
Oh yeah, that.
Yeah.
Some of the
Affectionately
iconic
referred to as Boner
titles,
The
O.
hot tub episode.
They started, Go Rangers started it all. You got the huge nostalgia factor there.
Sun Vulcan.
Sun Vulcan
First three-man.
was a 3-man team.
And stayed
a 3-man team, very popular in Japan.
Yay!
Maji Ranger, they're wizards. Guess what else was popular at the time of Maji
Harry
Ranger?
Potter.
Toei's not
Do you-
above jumping on the bandwagon.
Do you know the secret behind the name of the Hurricaneer team?
Yep, Hurricaneer. They were
Hurricaneer.
playing off of the name Harry Potter and how that.
Kenja Noishi, Hari Kenja.
Yeah.
What about Jetman?
You mean Gotchaman? but
Kenjer was
Jetman is also fantastic.
Jetman is fantastic. And pretty iconic. But
Shinkenger was the series that most Westerners got into because
Yes.
there was
It
a
was.
lack of a Power Rangers adaptation at the
Yes.
time.
Yep,
And
so
it also
big
ended up
resurgence.
bringing back Power Rangers, but it was
Oh
also
God, it was a
huge
terrible
in Japan. It was actually part of a
We didn't
push
get
to
Shink
try
and
to
Brown. I wanted both to be
make
Shink and
Japanese
Brown.
culture more exciting for kids.
The Red Ranger
And
leader.
it did really well. Gokaiger was the 5th anniversary. It's amazing. It's a great jumping on point if anyone's interested in
How did
Sentai.
Saban fail? How did Saban fail?
They had space pirates and they didn't use it.
Also,
Gokaiger did what Decade failed to do: be an amazing tribute while not spoiling its own plots.
Yeah.
Toei had some growing pains with Decade. We'll talk about that.
and the thing with Saban is they were requested by the production company to keep it all in one universe. Don't change your protagonists, so that's why Gokaiger kind of got shoved
Because
into.
the Megaforce cast were so interesting.
Yeah.
I play some.
Well, currently still running, turning
Why
out a
did they keep
Sentai
the
a year.
Sentai only Rangers in the footage?
The Ninja Shinobi who won't stay hidden and are also still looking for their characterization, but that's okay.
And we have a cowboy ninja now!
We do have a
No,
cowboy ninja
Male
now.
Yellow
That sounds
sent
cool.
Magic
And
Ranger.
also,
Yes, Akiba
Yes, I
Ranger.
love this.
There is unofficial Sentai Akiba Ranger.
Oh
it
my
was made by
God.
Toei. It was aimed at the adult Toku audience.
Oh
and
god, was
I
it?
love
was
the
pretty
episode where they did the whole Power Ranger mistaken as
Powerful
Sentai.
Rangers?
Powerful Rangers.
They actually included those effect parts with one of the figures.
We might want to
We
call
do
that
not
out.
have Kanpai Senshi in here, but if you want
Oh yeah, that was
a
good.
Sentai,
They confirmed a second season of Kanpai Senshi.
Yep, and that's a very unofficial parody.
Yeah.
of
yeah,
Sentai.
it's not
But
made
it-
by Toei, but it's very good.
But it does have the
Kanpai
actors
Senshi
for Not
advertised.
Kuga and Drake.
What was the name of that parody you mentioned?
Kanpai Senshi After 5, and it's definitely worth a watch. It's got some cool.
It will hit you in the feels.
Who then go and drink together after their work is done.
Drink and go to
And karaoke.
It's got fantastic satire. They try to. They're
Has
like,
anyone ever
why
noticed
don't the monsters ever attack anywhere else? Why don't they go attack Brazil instead of right here?
Wait,
And
wait,
then it
what's
shows
the
the
name again?
bad guy looking
After
up
five.
tickets to
After
Brazil
V.
on his phone, and he's like,
Kanpai Senshi After 5, which is the V. That show hits you right in the feels at the end. Oh my god.
Popeyes and Cheers.
You actually feel sorry for the.
Think of the drunk five-man team, maybe.
there was a USA Dynaman dub.
That was 7.
Yeah, that was bad. It was this show called Power Rangers. You might have heard of it.
Son of a head.
We just can't hit 11 o'clock.
Welcome, you guys here for Gara?
Okay, we're just finishing up this panel because we do this panel and the next one.
Oh, Zoo Ranger is out from
Sorry.
Shop Factory. If you want us to have a hope and a prayer of getting other Sentai actually officially released here, because this is super cool that it's out.